It's called These Men I Know. These men I know have always been liars. As kids, it was seeing masked men in alleys, and these days, it's always one team that lets them down on their footy bets. These men have more than a few regrets. They carry them etched upon their faces. To know them, you have to be perceptive to the spaces in between what they say, because these men will tell you anything. You know your man Roots? He stole that recipe for reggae sauce off my uncle. And my great-granda invented the crossword puzzle. Here's one, 6 down, untrustworthy person. L-Y blank N-G-B blank S-T-A-R-D. Yeah. See, it's always the day before I meet them that they caught their girlfriends cheating, give the guy in question a beating, the cops came, they got to see him, and of course then they got away. And now they're keeping it low key, except they're telling me and everyone else that will listen. You see, when no meaningful dialogue exists, it becomes necessary to make it up, and I don't even mind because I love a good story. But recently, I noticed their hands are shaking when they send their texts, telling wives and girlfriends they won't be home tonight. They're not nervous, it's just the drink taking its toll. I think they've let the crack go above 90 and everyone knows that's the threshold. After that, the wheels come off like the go-karts we made as kids, hurtling down hills at breakneck speeds. These men are the personification of car crashes. They're hurting, and there's little we can say or do, but at least we could stop pretending this is not a bottleneck, or that it's not a triangle with an apex and a base, and acknowledge that we need both to maintain shape. You see, those at the top have caused us enough shame, but when the fury dies down, it's always these men that we blame because they're ugly, they're stupid, and they're poor. But these men are my friends, and recently we've been losing common ground because I've taken up poetry and partial to pottery, and I'm salsa dancing at the weekends. One Tanamera, there's only one Tanamera. It's not all for fun though. No, I'm trying to stack the odds in my favour. I'm trying to beat the bookie too. Because if I roll the dice and I'll know where to find them, I'll pull up a bar stool and sit down beside them, and they'll tell me how Arsenal just let them down for a couple grand. And I'll say, don't worry man, you'll get them next week. Cheers, thank you. This is the lamentations of Finn McCool after 3 Guinness and half a bottle of Bushmills. Hard to believe that I, leader of the fearless Fianna and altogether giant of an Irishman, would be such an avid Simpsons fan. But for the purposes of this conversation, I am. For what is it your man Homer says after things go wrong in life?
Dope.
Yeah. And that's exactly how I felt after the loss of my first dear wife. Dear wife. You see, when the man says taking on a wife is a deer handling, I don't think he meant you should end up with an actual deer on your hands like I did. And hindsight is a funny thing. Well, you should try hind leg sight when the thing you're looking at shouldn't have them. How can a man make any future plans when those around him keep turning into animals? I was gazing out the window when I first saw it, grazing skittishly on the front lawn, chawing on me prized geraniums and sniffing around my cabbage patch. When I clapped my hands to shoo it away, it looked up at me with the big brown eyes. It was halfway to the woods before I realised it had a pendant on its neck. I could have given chase, but what would have been the use? To keep her around the house on a leash? As much of a sin as that might have been, it might have prevented me from making future mistakes. As the man says, better the deer than the rat. And I should have clocked that from the start. Grania. Grania. She never had a very nice countenance. Daughter of Con of the 50 battles, or whatever it was he liked to be called. He was a bully, a lout. Thought he was a big man after a few stout, but he wasn't fit to braid my hair. And more to the point, neither was she. So how then did she bring me to my knees, took everything I believed and called it into question? For what can a man depend on, if not his lover or his friends? And what happens when the two blend to commit an act of betrayal? Well, the answer's laying right here in front of you. The tongue lolling out of his mouth like a greyhound that's just run the 525 round Shelburne Park. And you'll have to forgive me for turning things a little dark, because if I had my time again, I still wouldn't save him. Still wouldn't cradle that water like the head of a newborn son. I'd do a lot worse than let it run through my fingers. I'd stick it in my gob and gargle it like mouthwash, let it linger until he had taken his final breaths. And then I'd spit it in his face. And there'd be no more than he deserved. Thank you.